This is Text2, recorded on Thursday, June 21st, 2012. Episode 18, Windows-the-Conqueror. Coming up next on Text2, we'll talk about Twitter, going offline, Windows Phone 8 details, Xbox 720 rumors, Microsoft Surface. We talk iOS 6, black holes, RC airplanes, and more. You can find us on the web at tech-stew.com. Subscribe to the show via the podcast RSS feed or via iTunes. There are icons for Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus as well. Use the tip button on the website to send us topics you'd like to see covered or comments about the show to techstew at tech-stew.com, and we can get some of them on the show. Show your support for TechStew by clicking the donate button on the website. Your donations help keep the show's content and the show's Good afternoon, morning, or night, wherever and whenever you are. It's another episode of TechStew, the show that discusses the best of everything technology, computers, home theater, gaming, science, RC airplanes, and more. I am Mark Murrin. I'm Dylan. And we're back in action here with the latest episode here. And I should just mention that I have been experiencing Windows 8 now for, a good, 2 weeks since I did that corporate upgrade, if you will. And I do believe so. I ran into those issues I mentioned. I did manage today to figure out the Adobe CS5 and CS6 issue where an error would pop up. And the error was a 126 error. It was related to the ATI driver, and if I went into the device manager, it turned out that the driver it installed was an engineering sample. So I went through and I updated the driver. And I was able to circumvent it by selecting the correct AMD ATI driver, and then launch like After Effects, any of those video-centric programs, and the error went away. So I was all happy about getting past the CS5 and CS6 glitch with the ATI driver. I still haven't got to the issue of there being no Metro IE yet. Hasn't been a big concern of mine, and I haven't really touched the start menu too much at all, or start screen I should say, although I did start organizing some of the icons there into little groups. But it's nice to be able to hit the all apps button and you can see your program structure just like before. So for instance, if you still want categories, you can go to right click the start menu where you normally would right now, do open all users, and there under programs you can create folders for different categories and move all your icons in there, and that would be the C program data Microsoft /Windows /start menu programs area. Create all your little groups in there, move all your icons and shortcuts around, and when you click all apps, voila, all the groups will show up under Windows 8. In the release preview, at least for now, that old start menu structure still works and shows up. So it's one way to avoid having to use the more cluttered start screen, although I like having just the shortcuts that are used most often right on the start screen, and then when I need something that I don't have in there, I go to all apps and I see that folder structure I've created from before. So overall, it's been pretty smooth. I didn't reboot for days and had really no issues. So yay for Windows 8 and the upgrade process, at least so far. Although I always stress doing a clean install, but this was just a test for scientific purposes. So we'll be upgrading your machine next, Dylan. You and several comrades there. Actually, the RTM is due out August 1st, according to some rumors, so it's not that far around the corner, although upgrading from release preview to the RTM will probably be impossible. So if you've already installed the release preview, you're probably out of luck and going to have to do a fresh install anyway, unless you saved your old image. So it's coming, RTM, but that general availability not until October, something like that.
I don't know.
But Windows is great, and so is 8, I say. I love it. But let's move on to the topics for this week and fire up the news stories.
Ready.
The first story came straight out of today. The Twitter service was disrupted for over an hour today, and as a result, productivity around the world skyrocketed. New technology was created because of the Twitter downtime. Around 12 o'clock, actually, Eastern Time, Twitter was down. It stayed down until a little after 1, roughly an hour. A Twitter spokesperson at the time said they were looking into the issue and they didn't know when it would come back up, but it did come back after about 1 hour. The Pingdom website revealed it was one of Twitter's worst crashes in months, in the outage lasting over an hour. So Twitter users out there were in a panic for at least 1 hour today.
You could say they were all a Twitter.
Yes.
I did miss the outage. Did they have the fail whale up this time?
What is the fail whale? I don't know that one.
Well, I mean, classically, Twitter's service when it just came out was like exceedingly unreliable, and so whenever they had an error, they would put up this picture of a whale that later became known as the fail whale, I do believe.
Now, the pages just didn't generally open. In fact, looking at pingdom.com for them, it looks like at around 142 to 206 it went down again. And then again around 3:42 till 4 p.m. Eastern Time, it was down again. So it was more than 1 hour of downtime, and that's a lot of downtime. But no, it just brought you back to a page cannot be displayed when I checked it earlier today.
Disappointing.
Well, moving along here, Windows Phone 8 details were announced, the Apollo code name, and so the big question here is, will Microsoft gain momentum in the mobile market? Microsoft announced details on the Windows 8 phone at the Windows Phone Developer Summit the other day. That was yesterday, I believe. And it would arrive this fall with development tools coming over the summer. The new platform is to support more than just dual-core processors, which is big in itself. It will support as many as 64 cores if we have such devices over the lifespan of Windows Phone. The past 800 by 480 display barrier has been shattered, and they will offer a 1280 by 720 or a 1280 by 768 resolution screen. And they have the new abilities such as NFC for payments and tagging, and support for micro SD. That's one of the big things here. It was technically possible in Windows Phone 7, but the removal of the cards were not supported when the device was powered on. Also included now is the shared core between Windows 8 on multiple devices now, and native coding of C++ and Direct 3D as well. So now full gaming engines can possibly come to Windows Phone 8, enabling better physics capabilities for developers. Microsoft had showed off the Havoc engine as one example, showing similar characteristics that you would see on the desktop version. And they've also added APIs to Windows Phone 8 that include SQLite, so developers will be able to use Visual Studio 2012 tools as well to develop on all the platforms. IE10 was the other big thing. It will come baked into the operating system, and it'll have the engine that mirrors the desktop version. Microsoft is allowing native code development for the platform with DirectX support. Speech, they're emphasizing apps can be launched with speech, voice prompt, application settings, move over Siri, that sort of thing. I'm just kidding. Maps, they're going to rely on the Nokia maps, not Bing maps, for with offline map ability and turn-by-turn navigation. I believe that is the Navtech map system. Enterprise support, of course, is the big catch here. Be ready for business with better encryption and secure boot features, and IT admins can configure their own app deployment scenarios, do side loading of apps, and it'll work on Windows PCs as well, thanks to the shared core. And they enhanced the start screen a bit. A new start screen with resizable tiles coming in double wide, regular, and small, and any tile can have one of these three sizes. Well, and they'll make the tiles updatable as well in the live update. Skype and VoIP integration are big here. They've stated that Skype is to be largely just an application that can be downloaded to take advantage of the existing integration, but VoIP apps can now integrate directly, such as in the phone dialer, People Hub, and other areas. That's one of the big selling points there. And Windows Phone 7.8 will be the latest upgrade for Windows Phone 7. There will not be a path to upgrade from Mango, Windows Phone 7.5, to Windows Phone 8 or from Windows 7.8. You have to buy new hardware to get to Windows Phone 8. And Windows Phone 7 was released in November of 2010, and then the 7.5 Mango update in 2011, and now here comes Windows Phone 8. You could call this Windows Phone 2.0. Microsoft may have this chance to take a larger market share from iOS and Android. In the past, it's been successful in smaller areas, but hasn't had a big name support like its competitors. The new hardware and feature set could be useful, and Windows 8 has the potential to attract new users who might not have considered making the switch in the past. However, when you look at these features, what's really cool here? Well, not a whole lot. Maybe SD for some people, because you could expand your memory versus paying more for a new phone. But other things like NFC...
Yeah, I mean, if only some phones out there supported the ability to have an SD card.
That's a pretty minor additional feature.
Well, yeah, I mean, as the joke being, Android supported that since basically forever.
That's
not the ability to take it out while power's on, usually, but like I think it depends on your phone manufacturer whether or not you could take it out while it was on or not. But yeah, and the multi-core thing I find to be kind of a weird bit of bragging too, because as far as I know, unless there's been some drastic alterations to the Linux core, Android should also be able to support like basically 64 as well, if not 256 cores. Not that anyone cares.
Yeah, I think the most right now is what, dual core, so...
Yeah, I think even the Galaxy 3, which would probably be your latest and greatest, is still dual core, so...
Well, now someone will come out with a 64-core phone just to say, hey, look how great this is.
That's exactly it.
But...
that'll go through your battery pretty quick.
That's true, it would tear it up. The core sharing could be a pretty big seller. Apps written for one platform being easily converted, well, maybe not easily, but more easily converted from one to the other. And that could be more attractive, though, to developers and consumers initially, although in the long run that could generate a lot of new apps for the Microsoft Store.
Yeah, I mean, I am thinking that, in thinking about the way Windows Phone is going to have to fit in with the world, like, before, when it was Android and iPhone, you could really have two separate apps, but I think that tools like Mono in particular, which allow cross-platform development on the phones and, like, the Unity game engine and stuff like, and similar sorts of things, are going to just take off in popularity because it's just completely untenable to manage so many platforms at once. I mean, even if you look at the current app landscape, I mean, how many, this really only applies to Android users, but how many apps have you downloaded that would really, could probably use that menu button, but instead they don't use it. Like, basically, they're designed so that everything is sitting on the screen. Even if they would be able to just add, like, a menu button, they don't have one. And why is that? Well, because they're cross-compiled for the iPhone, which does not have a menu button or a joypad or something like that. So, I mean, already you're seeing a lot of apps really are just very much lowest common denominator, cross-compiled support. And I think, especially now with the Microsoft, with the Windows Phone being a player in the field and a small one, but a one that will probably grow, I can't really think that anything less than probably 3/4 of the apps are going to be all just cross-compiled, and all this developer stuff is going to be complete nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably see, like, Microsoft Link will work as well as it ever does. They'll probably write that one natively. I wouldn't be too surprised if we see like a Lite. Quite a few native things from Microsoft, and always like there will always be platform-specific apps that will leverage things. Especially like you're looking at the VoIP infrastructure that they have in there, and the similar sorts of more tightly integrated apps that provide a service on your phone rather than like a game or an augmented reality or something. They'll definitely that will definitely be there, but I just can't see the whole world shifting to accommodate Microsoft here. Well, a day late and kind of $1 short.
Well, I think over time it's going to become more of their selling point, and especially in enterprise, when the enterprise user has a choice between something easily configurable or something more difficult. Hopefully the Windows platform will be more easy to manage than, say, the iPhone using third-party tools, or Android, which is almost non-existent. Because right now RIM and BlackBerry are still big enterprise in the mobile enterprise realm, so Microsoft has a chance here to really gain some ground.
I do agree. I think that's the one place where Microsoft really has an ability to shine. I do think, though, still from a developer perspective, it's going to fail to sell in that regard, unless you're talking about, of course, internal apps, which won't be uncommon. I can definitely see it. I can definitely see it gaining footholds in a lot of places. I mean, right now you'll see Windows CE used in a lot of places as well, and I wouldn't be too surprised if Windows Phone or a variant thereof starts to replace a lot of those on like the retail, like portable scanners. I think are all Windows CE, and those sorts of applications. I think that they will make headways for. But yeah, I mean, I think as far as like games developed for it, man, like the only time I think anyone would be writing native code for it is either Microsoft themselves, or potentially, now I don't really know what the plan is in this regard, but potentially as a tie-in with an Xbox setup, where you could have like a like a mobile version of an Xbox game or something like that. Like I could kind of see that, but is the question is would there be sufficient gains and benefits to tying it to that platform versus maybe taking an efficiency hit.
Well, that's one of the rumors of the Xbox 720, that leak that came out, that Nokia might be developing some sort of a mobile Xbox ability. I think it was Nokia. That's one possibility in the future.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. I personally think they will gain a good chunk back in the enterprise realm, and then over the course of a year or two probably become much more competitive, and then maybe in the next few years become Windows-the-Conqueror in terms of conquering everybody, because Windows is on every platform. You have one unified GUI and works on the phone, works on the tablet. Hey, look, it works on my PC too.
Yeah, sure.
That's a dream world, but for Microsoft, conquering everyone there.
I mean, yeah, I do think that it stands a good chance in the. I do think it stands a good chance in the enterprise market. I'm really surprised that no one has really bothered to set Android up for that. I mean, Apple's far better than it, and Apple doesn't even really want your enterprise business almost,
Yeah, they've traditionally not really cared, but Microsoft, that's their large chunk right there, so they have to keep pushing on the enterprise, and they're certainly going to make their share, I think, with Windows 8.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, I would say, though, as far as with Windows 8 specifically, I would be surprised if anyone's really going to install that in the corporate world.
Nah, I don't know. You might be surprised. Well,
I hope I'm not surprised.
I mean, I'm running it and loving it because it's largely Windows 7 under the hood. So.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, what does a business have to gain by upgrading to Windows 8?
Yeah, true. A lot of businesses will not. They'll probably skip Windows 8 and wait till Windows 9. Not just, I don't think, because of the fact there won't be they're thinking the start screen, the tile, the Metro is going to go away. They just will probably skip, because that's what businesses do. They usually skip the intermediate. They skip Vista in many cases and jump right to Windows 7. So I think that's going to be the driving factor.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone's under the illusion that kind of you can only have one app open, like Metro can only be on one screen, that sort of stuff. That's all very slapdash integration with the desktop at this point. I think it's going to be fixed a lot more in 9, at which point it might actually be usable on the desktop, rather than just sort of like there.
Well, it's usable. It's just not as
it's
not as nice as you'd like it. Because yes, I'd like to have like the start screen, like I've said, on one screen, visible at all times, so I can see my live updated tiles. Or I'd like to have the start screen span all 3 of my screens, so that I can have a nice big view of everything going on. But maybe there'll be adjustments even with the existing one. But
I think that sort of stuff is stuff that Microsoft is targeting at Windows 9, and so I think that companies are going to be like, Windows 8 is just 7 except crap on top of it, so we'll just stick with 7 until they've got a significant upgrade for us with 9.
Yeah, I do agree. Let's move on to the Xbox 720 rumor, or Xbox Next, or whatever you want to call it. E3 had wrapped up, and there were no details about the next version of the Xbox. And it came from a 56-page document that was leaked, and the release date indicated it would be late 2013. There would be 3D glasses and Blu-ray support on the Xbox 720, and a 2 gigahertz ARM, or possibly x86 cores, either 6 or 8. And the Xbox power source, the document suggests, well, this really isn't power source, this is memory, suggests 4 GB of RAM with backward compatibility for 360 games. And among the enhancements that were referenced were the ability to track up to 4 players simultaneously, stronger integration with other devices like the PC and Windows Phone, just an all-around more powerful performance. And then there was another side project called Kinect Glasses that they're working on, which hints of Google's Project Glass in it, kind of an augmented reality type setup, I think, there. And regarding Kinect, the new version of Microsoft's motion sensing system will likely be out in 2015, with Kinect Glasses actually coming in 2014. Kinect Glasses being Microsoft's virtual reality project. They may also have Wi-Fi and or 4G LTE support on the Kinect Glasses. The price was actually indicated as well at $299. Of course, these are all rumors from these alleged documents, pages and so forth. There's some sketches and diagrams out there on the net you can check out, but that is the big rumor. Whether or not all this will hold true will remain to be seen, but 2013, that seems likely, given we have the Wii coming out at the end of the year, and probably a new PlayStation at the end of next year, although that hasn't been confirmed yet either.
Yeah, I can't really anticipate them waiting a whole lot longer, so I think that that's certainly going to be true, regardless of anything else in the document.
Yeah, and the Xbox 1440 will have a holodeck interface, according to another leaked document.
That was just me making stuff up
just
earlier today.
Yeah. The holodeck would be quite nice.
It would be. I mean, at the pace that we're releasing the consoles, I would not actually be that surprised. I mean, what was the 360 out? I mean, it's got to be, what, 6, 7 years now?
Yeah, it was like 2005, I think. Could be wrong on that, but it's been a while. 5, 6, 7 years. 7 years at this point.
Yes. Unveiled 2005. Available, yeah, 2005.
Yep. December or something like that. November, usually.
Yeah, so I mean, they're pushing. I mean, if they're talking about fall 2013.
That's 8 years in a console's life. It's just insane.
I think that was the same as the previous generation, unless I'm mistaken. Maybe even a little bit longer. I thought they were aiming for shorter. Yeah, I mean, Xbox Classic was 2001. Now, I do believe, though, that that was introduced after the PS2 by a decent margin. Yeah, PS2 was 2000. So yeah, they're really stretching this generation a lot.
Yep. Yeah, I really can't see them going into 2014.
I'm really surprised that
probably.
we haven't. Yeah, I'm really surprised that we haven't had anything this year.
Well,
That's
they've added some things like Kinect, so they're trying to get more life out of it with Kinect and the Kinect enhancement and so forth. Well, the PC version of Kinect too, but and then that version of the Xbox cheaper version coming out, but that seems pretty worthless. Early next year, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's not much to that. It certainly ain't a new console, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, Microsoft has announced the Surface tablets. That was the big announcements. And they revealed the 10.6-inch tablets as a Bluetooth keyboard, which is really thin, and it's magnetically latching to the screen. The screen has a stand. Just by comparison, the iPad 1 and 2 had a 9.7-inch screen with a resolution of 1024 by 768, and the iPad 3 is 2048 by 1536 and a 9.7-inch display. Now, the new devices, one is the Surface for Windows RT, coming with Windows RT, or WOA, Windows on ARM, as it used to be, with a 10.6-inch HD display, but not full HD. Chip being the NVIDIA Tegra, weighing about 1.49 pounds, and the iPad 3 weighing about 1.44 by comparison. Thick, it's about 9.3 millimeters. It has micro SD, USB 2.0, and micro HD video. It will have Office 15, of course, the desktop edition being the only desktop app on Windows ARM, Windows RT, I should say. And a battery of about 31.5 watt hours, the iPad having 42.5. 32 and 64 memory configurations available there. Now the Surface for Windows 8 Pro is of course the 10.6-inch display, 16 by 9, 1920 by 1080. So there we are at 1920 by 1080. The iPad 3 is 2048 by 1536 by comparison. Although this is a 16 by 9 screen, HD, you won't have bars on the sides like you would with the 9.7-inch iPad 3. It will come with an Ivy Bridge Intel Core i5, weigh about 1.99 pounds as opposed to the 1.49 pound ARM version. And it's about 13.5 millimeters thick, with micro SD XC, USB 3.0, mini display port as well there. Display port, not HDMI in that case. And battery is a 42 watt hour battery. It comes in 32, 64, and 128. It appears that the Surface RT and the Surface Pro will be Wi-Fi only, at least at this point, as opposed to the third generation iPad, which is Wi-Fi 4G for LTE, or Wi-Fi with 3G, depending on your country and carrier. So the key questions here is how will Microsoft compete with Apple when the Apple iPad is about a $399 entry price, and comparing that with like the 14-inch Ultrabook, which is Ivy Bridge, that is coming out for around $700. Just taking the average of the two versions that are about to come out. Of course, they will have enterprise ability here. Basically, you're going to get a full-blown PC, it would appear, in the form of a tablet, where before with iPad you didn't have that. You didn't even have Mac OS X, you had iOS, which is sort of limited. Microsoft should be more appealing to enterprise and consumers, but we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, I mean, mind that the WinRT version is basically iOS anyway. I mean, it's not really like that's offering you much more capability.
Yeah, you're stuck in Metro land, but you do get the full version of Microsoft Office, though.
Yeah. I mean,
if that appeals to you.
yeah, like
On a touch.
I mean,
Well, you got your keyboard. You don't have a keyboard with an iPad. You're not doing a clunky Bluetooth connection with an iPad. The other options that there are for iPad are thick, clunky, nothing like this anyway. And
yeah, I don't really, I don't really know that Microsoft's got too much to deliver. I mean, while Office can be a bit of an appealing carrot versus the iPod, an iPad, I think most people spend a lot more time on their iPad type appliances, browsing the net, checking email, and not really composing Word documents or spreadsheets or things like that.
that could change. That's what maybe Microsoft is trying to target here. They're saying, hey, here, you don't need this silly hybrid iPad anymore. You can take this tablet like you would your PC. In the exact same operating system that you would have on your PC, everything should be seamless going from one to the other, especially if you're using, SkyDrive and you're syncing up your documents and things like that. I can see that being a real nice feature to have, and I personally would want one. The question is, how's the price going to be? Of course, RT is likely to be cheaper than Pro, probably somewhere in the middle on both of them compared to an iPad, I would think. Somewhere in the middle between a iPad and a Ultrabook. Maybe
I mean,
500, something like that.
I wouldn't be surprised if RT comes in at or perhaps slightly even below the iPad.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just because I think, unlike Apple, I think Microsoft would prefer to basically sell at cost, at least the RT version, to get into the market, whereas Apple makes pretty decent money on them, as I recall.
Yeah, maybe they would. I mean, would they offer it for $350? I don't know, or at least $399.
I don't know if they could do that. Yeah, I mean, I would probably think $399. That would be my guess. If I had to put a guess, I'd say $399 for the WinRT tablet.
And I'll say, I was going to say $699, but no.
For RT?
No, for Pro, I'm going to go with $599. We'll go with $399 and $599 and see how our predictions.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be too surprised if the Pro pushes a little bit higher and they aim to make some money off that, because that's got the full Windows 8 version on it, so it's basically a laptop replacement.
But so is the Ultrabook, and the Ultrabook is around $700 for a 14-inch screen. We're only talking about a 10.6-inch screen in this case.
Yeah, but remember the smaller kind of translates to more expensive for these types of devices.
Yeah, that is true.
And you got the touch screen and all that sort of stuff.
You're paying for very fancy features you wouldn't get on an Ultrabook necessarily.
Right. So I wouldn't be too surprised if it comes in at about the same price. And you were saying you expect it to be $599 and the Ultrabook's $799?
It's somewhere in there. I think there was a $700 one and there was an $899 one coming out soon.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be too surprised if it was $699 for the Pro version. But
yeah, that's true.
I think that just depends on how much money Microsoft's aiming to make on them and how much they're looking to enter the market,
I think they've got some key features here. Of course, the keyboard being one of them, depending on how well it works. The size, of course, bigger than an iPad without the black bars, but thinner than an iPad, and RT weighing the same as an iPad. But then they've got the USB ports, which none of the others have. 2.0 on RT and 3.0 on Pro, so you could connect various things on there, like even what's it called? You could hook up your Magic Jack to a tablet.
Yeah, there you go.
And have a phone with you on the road.
Does it have display out?
Yes, mini HD or micro HD. I think what was it? Micro. It was micro HD on the Surface for Windows RT and the micro mini DisplayPort on Pro. So yeah, it does have that. But compare that to a MacBook Air, which can do 4 screens at once. Of course, that's a full-blown laptop too. So
yeah, exactly.
But that's pretty much it for that. And moving on, Apple announced iOS 6 at the WWDC conference. They made some announcements relating to iOS 6. Apple stated there will be 200 changes in store for iOS 6. Of the ones we have here, the biggest were the 3D maps, FaceTime over cellular, mail enhancements, developer beta of iOS 6 available immediately to download, and a final release coming in the fall, most likely at the same time as the rumored iPhone 5. The iPhone 3GS, 4, 4S, and iPad 2 and 3, and iPod Touch 4th Gen and later will be able to use the upgrade. Some of the changes: you have a new passbook on the home screen, which lets you get all your passes in one place, store cards, information, barcodes, QR codes. Siri can launch apps, which is kind of cool. I like that. Eyes free, car manufacturers will let you use Siri from the wheel. International support, of course. Update Facebook by Siri. Facebook integration built into the operating system. Photos and calendars get pulled into iOS, kind of like what Microsoft does in Windows 8 and on various versions. FaceTime over cellular, of course you can do that now with my Wi-Fi if you're jailbroken, but now it'll be right in there. Safari changes including the iCloud tab, offline reading list, photo upload features, smart app banners, full screen display, and landscape mode, shared photo streams. And they also have mail enhancements. VIP lets you mark somebody whose messages you want to be notified via alerts. Add photos and videos right into the message itself, pull to refresh, and there'll be per account signatures too. Phone enhancements, do not disturb, and text alerts will still come in. Reply with message feature, decline calls with an SMS message. Remind me later about the call or text or whatever 1 hour later when I leave, when I get home, when I get to work. We're going to have a lost mode. There'll be some guided access for getting rid of buttons, and single app mode for educational and enterprise purposes. And the Maps app, starting from the ground up. Goodbye Google Maps with a 3D option, flyover mode, rendered in real time, not a movie, they say. Turn-by-turn navigation with information like accidents and other traffic data, and anonymous traffic submission ability, and a rerouting if stuck in detour. No word on whether the turn-by-turn navigation will be voice-guided or not. Well, I would assume maybe that would be the case. Maybe Siri will talk to you. I don't know. So that is all the iOS 6 enhancements coming your way very soon.
I know, I'm really looking forward to using that
well, you're really looking forward to using it on your Android, aren't you?
Exactly. That seems reasonable.
I don't know. I like some of the new features. Like, of course, I don't have a 4S. Unless I hack my phone, I can't really get Siri, and I can't launch apps by voice. Now, that feature would be kind of cool, because if you're driving and you want to launch a Maps app, for instance, you could say, Siri, launch, Copilot Live, and it would launch the app. Maybe you could even tell it to go to a certain location, although I don't think that is included just yet. I don't really care about the Facebook integration so much, or the Passbook. I would never probably use that. Maybe the Movie Passes thing, but I don't really use Safari. I've been using the Yahoo browser lately, or the Perfect browser, even better. Mail enhancements sound kind of nice, depending on what those account signatures are going to entail. Will it be like Outlook, where you can have full-blown HTML, or is it just going to be a simple, text signature? No word on that, I suppose. The Do Not Disturb is kind of nice, but if you're jailbroken, there's a lot of that right now, except for the reply with message feature and the Remind Me Later. I don't think there's anything like that out there right now. So I don't know. We'll see. Coming this fall, I'm still on 4.2 or something like that. I haven't even got to 5 yet, so maybe 6 will give me a reason to go. But Apple unveiled a Retina display MacBook Pro, which is available now at the Worldwide Developers Conference, WWDC, in San Francisco. They announced the new Retina display MacBook Pro, along with updates to the 13 and 15-inch MacBook Pros. The new MacBook Pro is just 0.71 inches thick, weighing 4 mini iPhones and the new iPad. The MacBook Pro Retina will come in a 15:4 screen, 2800 by 1800 resolution IPS panel. Apple claims a 75% reduction in glare and reflections, and the MacBook Pro with Retina display ships with OS X Lion and featured updated apps such as Mail, iPhoto, etc. The apps are updated for proper scaling to go with a higher resolution, and some of the other apps will receive updates in the future as well, and pixel doubling will be used for certain apps that aren't going to be quite as updated as things like Final Cut Pro and Aperture that will get that update. The MacBook Pro Retina will feature the Ivy Bridge Core i7 up to 2.7 gigahertz and a 768 gigabyte SSD hard drive as the maximum size available, with 16 gig of 30 days of standby, and feature 802.11n 3x3 mode antenna there, Bluetooth 4.0, and Kepler NVIDIA GeForce GT 650M in its 15-inch model with USB 3.0 standard. Now the big thing is the price. The MacBook Pro with Retina will start at $21.99 for 256 gigs of SSD space and 8 gig of RAM, and it is available now, so rush out if you are a Mac fanatic and get your MacBook Pro right now. It sounds pretty luscious. Of course, there are competitors out there coming out with comparable things, but check out the MacBook Pro. And moving on to the science topics of the week. The first thing that we discovered was the Hint.fm wind map. If you haven't checked this out, it's pretty cool. It's a personal art project that was turned into a scientific project, basically taking scientific data and turning it into a wind map of America. It's on Hint FM, founded by Fernanda Viegas and Martin Wattenberg, who also lead Google's Big Picture Visualization Research Group in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It shows winds as they flow across the United States, surface wind data taken from the National Digital Forecast Database, and it's revised once an hour. You can zoom in, zoom out, and check out your local area and see how the winds are whipping around you. It's just kind of cool to check out. Not really useful for much else unless you want to know what direction the winds are blowing and so forth.
It's also helpful if you want to melt your processor.
I suppose that could work too. But the other story here is that the Voyager spacecraft are about to exit the solar system into interstellar space. 35 years after the spacecraft Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 left, and Star Wars came out and Jimmy Carter was president, they're finally on the absolute edge of our solar system. And according to a Voyager scientist, he says it's not clear because there's no signpost telling you that you're now leaving the solar system, but the evidence is mounting that we're getting really close based on data, I suppose, says the Eric Posner, a Voyager program scientist at NASA's headquarters in Washington, D.C. Now this boundary we're talking about is called the heliopause, and that's where scientists believe the solar wind, a stream of charged particles spewed out by the sun, dies out completely. Call it the cosmic doldrums, or maybe even the heavenly horse latitudes. There are tantalizing signs that Voyager 1, now 11 billion miles from home, is nearly there, and Voyager 2, which came first in launching, is about 2 billion miles behind it. Analyzing the heliopause and what lies just beyond is expected to be Voyager's last feat before they go black. It's amazing, 35 years and still communicating with these spacecraft. That just
yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, they definitely don't have much life left in them, but they had a lot more than they needed, and they're definitely nice to see them getting so much use out of them.
Yeah, and they first sent back data from our own solar system, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and they've managed to keep working. No one expected them to get this far, according to Posner. And Voyager also snapped a few images of Earth as it went out to space. At the urging of famed astronomer Carl Sagan, it also took a picture of what came to be known as the pale blue dot. And if you search for that, you can see the picture. And what is that sound? Did you hear that?
I did not.
That was very strange. I don't know if an ad popped up and generated a sound in my ear or not. It sounded like a cash register. I don't know what that was. Anyways.
So you know what would be awesome, even though it's not going to happen, but what would be awesome is if like it turns out that everything around us is all antimatter, and so the probes just make it through the heliopause and just dissolve.
Or they explode.
Explode, yeah. That would be pretty awesome.
Antimatter space of interstellar space.
Yeah, wouldn't that really change the outlook, though, of humanity on space? Like, wow, if we leave our solar system, we will instantly be annihilated by the intergalactic medium.
Or we will just consume all that antimatter into an antimatter engine and warp our way around the solar system, or the
there you go.
The galaxy, rather. Some of the Voyager's instruments, incidentally, are dead. Their radioactive batteries still have some shelf life into them. At some point in the next 10 to 15 years, well after both probes have crossed into interstellar space, they will go out, not with a big bang, but a whimper. And so, yeah, they're on the way out. And moving on to the other NASA news story here. A black hole space telescope has been deployed by NASA, and they deployed the 33-foot mast in orbit. NASA's newest space telescope is a black hole hunting observatory. It unfolded the giant mast Thursday, June 21st, and one of the final steps before it can begin peering deep into the universe. The 165 million nuclear spectroscopic telescope array NuSTAR is an X-ray observatory designed to study some of the most energetic and mysterious places in the universe through X-rays. In order to focus these very short wavelength, high-energy light rays, the telescope has to separate its light-gathering optics from a focal point at a distance away. And that's where the mast comes in. The 33-foot mast is 10 meters long in meters. It's made of stackable cubes formed by carbon fiber rods to serve as the distance the telescope's two X-ray optics from the focal point where the camera is placed. And so they're going to be looking for black holes. And the mast began extending from its storage canister on the 21st, and the process took 28 minutes for the mast motor to crank out the structure. And it's out there now, and they're ready to start doing science beginning on July 31st. Or what if they find a black hole on the edge of our own solar system?
There you go, another thing that won't happen for the Voyager probes to hit.
Yeah. No, of course not. They won't find that, but...
It'd just be like, oh wait, actually we couldn't see anything in that direction this whole time. Who knew?
Yeah, imagine that. And then the Voyager probe goes through the black hole and somehow gets spit out at another point in the, breaking all the laws of physics, and it doesn't get destroyed. Comes out somewhere else in the galaxy, and we discover a way.
I'm pretty sure
travel.
It becomes sentient at that point as well, right? That's what happens. I think there was a movie about that.
And or then the Borg form from it becoming sentient, and
oh yeah, that's something that happens too.
But let's move on to a new segment this week, and I'm excited about this segment because I think it should be a regular talk here, and we should get some other RC people involved too, if we can over time here. If you're an RC fanatic, send us an email, and we'll try to get you on the show if you have experience in the RC realm. This is the RC in Flight segment. Now, first off, we can talk about news stories related to RC and flight in general, and one of the things that was in the news recently was the winged suit man who set a record without a parachute. Now, this was just completely crazy. Stuntman Gary Connery set a new world record for a 3,000-foot base jump without a parachute. Gary Connery became the first skydiver to land without the aid of a parachute on May 23rd in Henley on Thames, England. The professor, the professional Hollywood stuntman, as he is, performed the jump without the aid of a parachute and landed on 24,000 cardboard boxes in his hometown of Henley upon Thames. Gary was wearing a revolutionary wingsuit, which lessens the forces of gravity as he descended, requiring him to land.
That is quite revolutionary, I must say.
Well, it required him to land at the optimal angle of the boxes as he approached speeds in excess of 90 miles per hour. You can find it out there, and it shows him crashing into the boxes and then getting up and walking away with two broken legs and 5 broken fingers. No, I'm kidding. He came out unscathed. I believe he had a neck brace on, though, during the flight.
It's giving them something to consider, and so
yeah,
I guess
it's pretty crazy.
Why does someone make a film? Why does someone paint a picture? It's to give somebody an experience, and I hope that's what I can do.
Would you jump from a plane into a pile of boxes?
If I had a suit that lessened gravity, sure. I probably would have turned it up a little bit, not have to deal with 90 miles per hour.
Yeah, but what if you missed the boxes?
Sounds like there's a lot of boxes, though. I don't really know how.
He hit it kind of above middle, so, you know, margin of error there. If a gust of wind comes from behind you all of a sudden, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen those wingsuits in action, and it's hard to say really what amount of control you have over them. Like, I mean, I'm not sure that you could quite make a second pass, but I mean, it seems like that's coming in a bit hotter than it would have had to be. I mean, unless I'm mistaken, like 90 miles per hour is really approaching critical velocity for a human. Like, I mean,
sounds like terminal velocity.
Yeah, I thought terminal velocity when you were kind of spread eagle, sort of falling down, was like 110. So, I mean, clearly that suit's not taking off that much. I imagine that
he didn't deploy the spoilers. That's all.
Yeah, I think that was it. Needs more spoilers. Just get a big old one, stretch it between its legs. Yeah, so that's what I find interesting. I mean, I would think that terminal velocity, just spread eagle with a wingsuit, would probably hit 90, if not even just 85. So, yeah, clearly he was, I would have to say, just aiming for it and build up a little more velocity than he probably had to for the sake of the demonstration and the show of it. I don't know. I'd probably want to experiment, learn the wingsuit a little bit before I jump out of a plane relying on it, but you know, seems pretty fun.
Yeah, I'd rather I don't know, I'd rather stay in the plane.
Yeah, I guess so.
A little safer that way. There's another
or would you rather just remote into the plane?
Or remote, yeah, first person view. I'll get to that in a second, but there's another...
Oh, sorry, I tried to give you a segue.
Well, yeah, we're not quite to that segue yet, but there was another interesting article or picture out there. If you look around, you'll see a B-17 gas station. And there's a gas station in Portland. It's been there since 1947. It became one of the region's most unusual filling stations. It stopped operating as a gas station in 91, but it's been associated to the adjacent restaurant. Visitors can grab a bite and a souvenir there. There was a guy shortly after World War II named Art Lacey who went to Kansas to buy a surplus B-17. He wanted to fly it back to Oregon, and put it up in the air and make a gas station out of it. And he paid $15,000 for a surplus B-17. They told him to take whatever one he wanted because there were miles of them. He didn't know how to fly a 4-engine airplane, so he read the manual, taxied around by himself, and they said he couldn't take off by himself. So he put a mannequin in the co-pilot seat and flew off. He flew around a bit.
Worked for an airplane, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Exactly. With a smile on his face. He flew around for a bit to get the feel of it, and then he went to land and realized he needed a co-pilot to land, lower the landing gear, so he crashed and totaled his plane and another on the ground and survived. They wrote them off as wind damage, told him to pick out another, so he talked a friend into being his co-pilot this time. So they flew to Palm Springs, and turned out he wrote a bad check, so he had to write a hot check for the gas, and they headed to Oregon. They hit a snowstorm. They couldn't see where they were going, so he had to fly under 1,000 feet and follow the railroad track. So his partner sat in the nose section and would yell out "tunnel" every time he would see a tunnel, and they would climb over the mountains. They eventually landed safely in Oregon and started getting the permits to move the B-17 on the state highway, and the highway department denied his permit, fought him tooth and nail, until one time he just moved it himself and he got a $10 ticket from the police for having too wide of a load. And that's the story behind the B-17 gas station, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds like an adventure.
Yeah, imagine going to a surplus yard to buy a B-17 bomber.
I'm just surprised it worked. I mean, that's a pretty good deal.
For the time, sure, yeah, $15,000. Yeah, I'll take that. Oh, no, we'll write that one off. And wind damage as you crash it into another plane. They have millions of them,
exactly.
or thousands of them, I suppose.
I mean, I wish I could get a working plane for 15 grand. That would be awesome.
That would be cool. But, this is the RC segment, so we need to talk a little bit about RCs.
You could throw an RC controller on that.
Put an RC on the B-17, fly it around. There's some good scale models of the B-17 out there you can get to and build. But in my case, I took my simple Twin Star 2 Eliper foam plane, and there's on Text2 you can see I have a review under, if you click on RC and rockets, I have a review on my Twin Star 2 with some specs on how I made it brushless with litho-polyum LiPo batteries. It's an electric plane. I don't really do much with gas anymore. And then I took the Keychain 720p camera and combined it with the plane. It's the 808 car keys number 11. Now, there's a few models of the car keys floating around out there. Number 11 and number 16 are some of the better ones. 16 being a little bit better than the 11. There is an 18, but it appears to have frame drop issues. These are 720p cameras. You should get a Class 6 and up card for them. They take micro SD. And in my case, I bought an 8 gig micro SD. And it uses a 1/4 inch CMOS WXGA 1 megapixel HD sensor with OmniPixel 3-HS technology, lithium-ion battery, rechargeable, H.264 in an MOV format. It has the micro SD slot that can support up to 32. 4 gig can record 80 minutes of video, and it's 1280 by 720, 30 frames per second. And it'll take pictures too at 5 megapixel in JPEG, and it even will work as a PC webcam with the number 11, 640 by 480, USB 2.0, and it'll recharge while you're recording. Recharge time being about 45 minutes, and battery life being about 40 minutes. But I got a model off eBay that had the date and time already removed, so you didn't have to do any firmware hacks. When the battery dies, current recording gets saved instead of lost. And instead of creating a new file every 20 minutes, it creates one every 70 minutes. So it makes it possible to record one big long file at 70 minutes. Video files can be edited without any transcoding. And it was pretty cool. I put it right on the, used some Velcro. First I tried putting it up on top of the canopy, had some noise issues and vibration issues up there. So I moved it down almost to the right at the vent on the plane, and used a string of nylon kite string, tied it to the screw that holds the wings together, and I later removed the metal keychain in favor of the nylon string as well. And voila, we have results, and on the website you can check out the video. I flew around a local park with a giant lake and got pretty high. I don't know how high because I don't yet have on-screen display with GPS or any kind of altimeter. Ultimately, I want to get an altimeter in there, or maybe an eagle tree or something like that. There's a lot of stuff out there you can get to find
really,
stats.
if you just put a GPS on there, you could get the altitude off that as well. It should be pretty accurate.
You can use the eagle tree, but you got to get the logger to be able to log the data. Or you can buy their altimeter, which is just a number device that sits in the plane, and it'll give you a barometric pressure reading on what the altitude difference was when you flew.
Just throw your iPhone in it. I mean, like, done.
Yeah, if I thought it would come back, I probably would, because I've had good success with the plane. But no, I get the GPS device. We'll talk about that sometime when I get more structure to what there is out there. But you can get Eagle Tree's GPS. I believe it's around $80. Put that in there. Then you can tether it, or not tether it, but connect it to their e-logger, and then take that e-logger data and plug it into your computer. That's a short story. And then you can get an on-screen display. They have a pro version that includes some of the things I just mentioned for about $269, and that gives you the on-screen display. But then you got to have a transmitter in your plane to send it back to the ground to do the on-screen display. That usually requires a secondary camera that acts as your first-person point-of-view camera, usually like a 600 lines, 525 lines type camera. It's not going to be HD. And then on the ground, you can either record out to a laptop, put some goggles on, even better, 640 by 40 goggles, and do the first-person flying. It's usually better to start out simple. Just get a transmitter, a receiver, and a pair of goggles. Find them used, usually on the RC groups out there, rcgroups.com. And don't worry about the on-screen display. Don't worry about the GPS if you want to do some first-person flying. And have a buddy box. One of you flies the plane first-person style. The other one's on the buddy box. So if you get into trouble, get lost, take control. Some good possibilities, but you do need a ham license to be able to use the frequencies that you'll be using. It costs about $15 to get the ham license and 4 hours of studying, so it's well worth it. But one of the questions around RCs are C ratings and batteries. And a common pack is a 2100 milliamp pack that you might have. If you have an electric motor, you know that it has an amperage that it can support and gives you a continuous and peak amperage. Peak being how many seconds it can take it. So what does the battery pack deliver in amps? This is a common question you'll find out there. For instance, if it's 25C, that would be 25 times 2100, and that translates into 52.5 amps. So the pack delivers 52.5 amps at 25C. This is the generic watered down version of how this works continuously. If your motor needs 30 amps, then 52.5 is plenty. Now if it's 40C, then that's 40 times 2100 or 206 amps. Higher C packs yield bigger packs and more money per pack. Generally, you should use a pack that delivers about 2 times the amperage, though, to give you a little bit of overhead and expand the life of the battery pack. And so how do you know when to choose one C over another C? So if the motor needs 30 amps, why would you want a battery that gives you 150 amps, for instance, or maybe not 150, 206 amps, like our other example even. Generally, you don't want that big of a power pack. But if you need 52 amps and you run a pack that's 25C at 2100 milliamp hours, then that's 52.5 it's outputting. So it'll make it, but you only get about fewer cycles, like say 20, 30 cycles out of the battery before it's shut. If you use a bigger C pack, you would get many more cycles, say 300 or more, depending on how much bigger you go. And higher C generally gives you shorter flight due to the amp draw as well, but not much shorter. Typically you should look at the ESC in battery as well and do it by 50%. So if you need 50 amps, you want a 100 amp speed controller overall with the same on the battery. So ideally you'd get a 100 amp battery pack in that case. Having the higher amperage will not damage your equipment either as a result. So that's the C lesson for the week. Have you ever messed with any RC plane stuff, Dylan?
No, I've not RC. I've played with a few planes. My brother's done a little bit RC stuff, but nah, not me.
It's fun and expensive.
The expensive thing's what gets me. It's like if I feel like spending a lot of money on flight, I'm gonna chase after an ultralight. I've always wanted to, and that's expensive as well.
But not
even that much more expensive. So that's kind of the thing.
Well, I don't know. Just take, for example, just as a news thing here, a new product announcement in the RC segment, the Easy Star 2, which is a LiPo-based Easy Star. Of course, you could mod your Easy Star 1 as being LiPo, is now available. You can get the Easy Star 2 at Tire Hobbies and other sites out there. And it's running about $94 for the kit, and that doesn't include the motors, the battery, the servos. You add on those, you're about $75 more, so you're looking at about $170 for a Easy Star 2 plane, plus a battery charger for your LiPo batteries, which isn't that much. That's just for one battery, though. You should always have at least two. I have two in my case. I think my plane was a bit more expensive than that back when I did it. Of course, I didn't have a lot of the equipment then either. But, so yeah, 176 gets you a nice Easy Star 2, which does, by the way, have ailerons as a possibility. You can add the ailerons later on. And the Easy Star 1 did...
Pretty more than 175 then.
No, you just have an extra couple of servos, and if you put the servos on, then voila, you have ailerons. If you don't, then you just use your rudder to turn left and right, keeping the Easy and Easy Star for beginners and for slow flyers for first-person point of view. I'd almost like an Easy Star over my Twin Star just because it moves a little bit slower. Mine can.
Yeah, but then I couldn't do a barrel roll. And what's the point of having a plane if you can't do a barrel roll?
That's true. I do love doing barrel rolls in my plane, although I'm nervous one of these days the wing is just going to rip right off because the Twin Star's not really designed for aerobactics, but you'll see in the video and some of the other videos, which I'll have to try to get up there, I have done some of that. But that's all we got in the RC segment for this week. Hopefully we can get some more in coming weeks. But we've got the picks and tips of the week here. We've got, well, the only one I really have this week, actually I have two, for the web. If you go to virtualapple.org/OregonTrailDisc.html, you can relive the days of 1985 on the Apple and play the Oregon Trail emulator. It works on Chrome, Firefox, and IE, although IE is a little trickier. You got to jump through some hoops to get the unsigned ActiveX control to install. And yeah, I may have used this once back in the 80s in school. I don't really remember it too much. I'm sure, Dylan, I'm sure you remember using it. This
I
one.
did have an Apple II, actually, yeah.
Did you seriously?
Yeah,
really?
I did.
I didn't think many had Apple IIs back then. But
I actually have two of them because my grandfather had one, and then I got that from him. So,
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I'm chocked to the gills with Apple IIs.
I was a C64 person, so I figured C64 and even the Amiga was probably more popular, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know if that would technically be my first, or if maybe my first was the color computer and/or a Tandy TR-80, I think, handheld widget. It was pretty cool because you could actually program it in BASIC. It had a membrane keyboard.
I remember that one, in fact, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. That's actually how I started programming, so the rest is history.
Yeah. But that was the web pick of the week. For iOS Yeah, I'll mention this. There's the Adobe Reader for iOS. So if you want to read PDFs and you don't have a third-party Adobe Reader plugin, or you're not jailbroken, you can download the Adobe Reader for iOS. It's free. I don't know if there's an Android version or not.
There is, yeah.
There is? Okay.
Yeah, and it's pretty good, honestly. I mean, you know, it's not too exciting, but it does a pretty solid job. Doesn't ask for permissions or do ads or anything. So
yeah,
yeah. I mean, can't really complain about it. You need to read a PDF. It works.
Yeah, I should also mention, I don't think we mentioned this app before, but for iOS, iHeartRadio is becoming one of my favorites because you can listen to local stations on there, and they have a pretty good algorithm for streaming music. You could start off by choosing a song or an artist, kind of like Pandora, actually very similar to Pandora, and it plays a good mix of music, and then you can tell it whether to play more commonly known songs or more obscure songs. There's like a dialer on the left. It's become pretty good on the iPhone, and in the beginning it wasn't very good at all, but now that you've got the Pandora features and the Pandora and the local stations, and some stations that are considered local but are like, say, pop or country music or whatever, and you're streaming that, or sports segments, it's pretty good. iHeartRadio, and I'm sure that's on other platforms as well. Android, I believe. Let me just verify that. Android. Yes, it is on Android. And I just wonder if it's on Windows Phone.
Because all the cool apps are on Windows Phone, man.
I believe it is, actually.
I think I wouldn't be surprised, yeah. I mean, that's one of those big name apps that they certainly push a lot. So.
It says 3.0. That sounds old, but I guess maybe not. Yeah, iHeartRadio. Well, that's 2010. Why is that article? Yeah, get the free app on Windows Phone if you go to the windowsphone.com site. So there you go. Go Microsoft, conquer the world, Arnold Schwarzenegger style. But so yeah, you have anything to add there? Any apps we didn't mention? I guess we got a couple there. So
yeah, let's see. I always don't remember, I should say, specifically what I've suggested in the past. A little puzzle game that I enjoyed to do games. Not really too much of an app, but it's called Doors. It's free, ad-supported. Fun little game, little puzzle game. Not too long, but, you know, keep you busy for a day or so.
So it's called Doors. Okay.
Doors, just Doors.
Doors for Android. If you are a big Android fanatic, there you go. So I guess that's it. We could say the tip of the week might be a Windows 8 tip, and that would be the Start menu, customizing your Start menu so that under All Apps you can see your various categories that you might create, or whatever was already there, for instance, by clicking All Apps, going into Windows Explorer and changing things, moving things around in there. That would be the Windows 8 tip of the week that I have. There will be others because there are lots of Windows 8 tips actually coming. So that's all I got. I guess that's going to wrap up today's show. And of course, always remember to keep on cooking with tech. And we will see you next time on TechStew.